As a freelancer, being able to generate ideas on the spot and as many as needed is important. The problem is that many times when you sit down and you open up your laptop, you get the headline writer's block. You get a page with a blinking cursor, and you just don't know what you're going to do about it. And this is where the idea of divergent versus convergent thinking comes into play. And these are ideas from Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte. It's a book that I really enjoyed reading and, more importantly, putting into action. It's something that I practice in my life, this idea of building a second brain and having different areas in my life, such as project areas, resources, and archives, that help me structure the information that is coming into my life, the notes that I take, the articles that I read, and all those things, and be able to quickly find them when I need something that I've come across in the past. And I find these ideas very useful, because what's the point of consuming information if you can't find it when you need it? So with that in mind, this is the divergent versus convergent ways of thinking. And this is where the dilemma of researching versus organizing data comes in. You can do all the research in the world, you can look at multiple sources, you can speak to people, you can get as much information as needed or as you think you need. But when it comes to organizing it, how do you actually do it in a way that is useful, in an organized way where you are able to find it? And this concept focuses on two stages. There's the divergent stage, where you try to get in as much information or as much useful information as possible, where the scope is very broad, and then you narrow it down. So you go to the convergent way of thinking, where the aim is to only keep the information that is useful. In divergent mode, you have three focuses. You're expanding horizon and exploring options. That's the first mode. Number two is encouraging curiosity. You're open to new ideas. And number three, there's the emphasis on a variety and broad information. You're trying to get as much information as you can, possibly even information you've never thought about before. In convergence mode, then we flip the script. Here the idea is to focus and narrow down on information. You're ignoring new inputs, you're just concentrating on the ideas you currently have, and you're aiming for completion of goals. You're not trying to add new goals, you're just trying to close off the ones you have. In his book, Tiago Forte mentions three ways how you can combine divergent and convergent thinking. The first is the Archipelago of Ideas. The aim is to have, again, two stages. The first is to gather all the information that you might need. New information, old information, other expert information, anything that can be useful at the later stage. So here you're not really filtering down information, you're just adding and collecting and curating as much data as possible. Then, when it comes to the convergence stage, you start eliminating. Even more importantly, you start to link ideas logically. You start to think how one thing can link to the next, to the next, to the next. You don't want to have separate threads of information. You want to have one big thing where every smaller thing is linked together, and there's only the things and information that you actually need. And for this exercise, Forte mentions using digital outlining, as this allows you more flexibility than traditional outlining. You can move ideas around, you can make them more succinct, you can expand by adding a few outline points if needed. So going digital allows you to play with ideas even more than you can using the traditional form. The next way is the Hemingway Bridge, and you might be aware of the Hemingway editor, which helps people dial down their words, their phrases, their articles into a level that is easier to understand. It's a tool, an online tool that gives you the grade score of your writing. What you might not know is that Hemingway is also responsible, or is credited with the idea of the Hemingway Bridge. Basically, the guy never stopped working until he knew exactly what the next step in his work was going to be. He never stopped working if he had a completed idea. He would get started on the next one and stop midway. And as a result of this, he attributes a number of benefits. The first is that you always know what is coming next. When you sit down on your laptop, on your notebook, on your tablet the next day, You know where you left off and what should be coming next. And I find that to be very empowering. I hate when I open my laptop and I don't know what I'm meant to do. Instead, like this, there's always what's next that is already answered. This also helps you set direct intention for future sessions. Even better than that, I also think that your subconscious mind can work on any challenges that you have in your work while you are not actively working on them. If I'm working on an article today and it's time to switch off my laptop and go do something else, and I use this Hemingway Bridge idea, I know that I might come up with ideas that consciously I wouldn't be able to come up with if I kept on working. But by doing something else, by distracting myself, so to speak, with something else, my mind sometimes thinks about new ideas, new ways of doing things. And this is very empowering in and of itself. If you have trouble coming up with ideas, or if you have trouble linking ideas, don't stop your work when it's completed. Stop midway, potentially before you finish, or start something new and stop midway. And like that, you'll allow your subconscious mind to think of solutions when you are not actively thinking about them. And I think this is a beautiful thing. The next thing that can help with divergent and convergent ideas is narrowing down the scope. So if I'm writing a book, this is a big task. But I can also think, what is a book made of? I know that a book is made up of an outline and a number of chapters. What is a chapter? Potentially a chapter is an article or a number of articles grouped together. So if I keep narrowing it down, a book is just a lot of words, a lot of paragraphs, a lot of sections, a lot of chapters. And when you think about it like this, you're narrowing down what it is you are actually working on. So you're no longer working on a big book, but rather you're working on the current article that goes into this current chapter. And like that, it makes it easier to grab the right ideas, focus on them, and get them done. And this idea of narrowing down the scope can be used in other projects as well. If you're working on something that is considered complex, by narrowing down the scope and creating the first deliverable and the second and the third, you get focused on what matters, which is what you're working on right now. Some other ideas that can help you with narrowing down the scope. So instead of conducting a paid workshop, you can give smaller free mini classes that combined together would then create the paid workshop. If you're creating a short film, you could create shorter YouTube content that combined together will form the longer movie. If you're creating a complete website for your business, what you could do is create content for each separate page, and then you have the assets ready where you're just assembling these assets into the right pages. So like that, you're narrowing down the scope, making it easier to get things done, and also keeping the big picture in mind. When working on projects, it's important to balance convergent and divergent thinking. There's time and place for both of them, and when used correctly in the right sequence, so going wide, divergent, and then going specific, convergent after, I think it is the best of both worlds. You gather all the ideas that you need, and then when it's time to really dial down, you have all the assets you need to remove, rather than try to get creative at that stage. So try it out, see how it goes, and let me know if it works for you in your business. If you want to get started with freelancing, check out the link in the description. I have a checklist for you that can give you the steps you need to take to start your business, and it will really allow you to focus on the next step in your business without getting overwhelmed with all the things that need to get done. In the meantime, I'll speak to you in the next video.